This story happens in India a long, long time ago. Marici was a hermit. He used to live alone in a remote forest in an almost permanent state of deep meditation. Wise among the wise, he was helping the world by invisible means, known only by people of his kind. His solitude was once interrupted by the appearance of a famous courtesan called Kamamanjari. When she appeared in front of the hermit, her long and dusty hair was sweeping the ground. She was crying. Soon after her, her mother, followed by all members of her family, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, arrived. They were upset. If they were to lose Kamamanjari, they said, they would lose their reason to live, and their income as well. In the presence of the family, Marici asked Kamamanjari the reason for her grief. "I am not worthy of knowing happiness in this life," cried Kamamanjari. "I am looking for another way. That's why I've come to you." But then the mother interrupted curtly, and she said, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault. If my daughter is in this miserable state, oh sage Marici, it's because I have forced her to follow her dharma. Yes, have forced her to become what she was meant to become, since the day she was born. Oh yes, have nourished her with the rarest products to preserve her health and complexion. Have watched her personality, created the best condition for her thriving. Since she was 5, I made sure she would only rarely see her father, and I taught her patiently all the techniques of love and all side disciplines, singing, dancing, the art of composing perfume and garlands, storytelling, and whatever is necessary to hold a good conversation, notion of philosophy, of politics, logic. I found her first lover. I kept the dangerous young and poor away. I found a lover who was highly born, rich, important. I forced her to stay faithful until the complete disappearance of the man's fortune. The education I gave to my daughter, O sage Marici, was, I believe, exemplary." Then the mother stayed quiet for a little while. Then she wiped some tears away and went on. "A courtesan, as you may know, O sage Marici, has to be ready for her lover at all times, but never show passion. If, out of bad luck, she is taken by love, obedience prevails. However, in spite of all the trouble I took, my daughter Kamamanjari has been spending 3 months of love at her own expenses with a young Brahmin who had only his beauty for sole resource. She turned down a prince who wanted to make her rich. She has upset and ruined her family. She did not follow her dharma. When I tried to put things right, she ran away into the forest. If she doesn't change her behavior, O sage Marici, all her family gathered in front of you is doomed to starvation and a miserable death." So spoke the mother. The hermit then turned to Kamamanjari. She was standing apart from her family, close to him, eyes fixed on the ground. He said, "What can we expect from life? What can we expect? Whether perfect liberation during our time on earth, or reaching nirvana later on. Perfect liberation is almost impossible. All we can do is strive to win our place into paradise by following our dharma. Your mother spoke the truth, Kamamanjari. Give up what's impossible. If I can't take refuge by you, cried Kamamanjari, then I'll take refuge in the fire. The hermit then turned to the mother, took her apart, and said, "Let your daughter spend a few days with me in the forest. She's accustomed to luxury. She'll soon be back with you." And so they did. Once alone with the hermit, Kamamanjari proved herself a perfect servant. She wore no makeup and simple clothes. She prepared his meals and flowers for his ceremonies. She sang and danced for the gods. Moreover, she had long talk with the hermit about the dharma, the kama, and the artha, which are, as you know, the three essential activities of every human life. The hermit was passionately interested in those kinds of conversations, and as it went, he showed more and more interest for his servant, which she noticed. "Isn't it a little bit bizarre," she said one day, "to consider the artha, the taste for wealth, and the kama, the taste for sexual pleasure, on the same level as the dharma, the particular law each of us has to follow?" "So you think," replied the hermit, "that the dharma is superior to the artha and the kama?" "Will I be the one to answer this question?" replied bashfully Kamamanjari. "Or are you just flattering me? I will answer. Without the dharma, there is nothing. If it gets weak, it can be restored. Thanks to the dharma, everyone can achieve a higher degree of holiness." And she spoke warmly, her eyes fixed in the hermit's eyes. She went on, "There are many temptations, though. Brahma himself fell in love. Shiva committed adultery with 11,000 hermits' wives. Vishnu had sex with 16,000 girls. Prajapati made love with his own daughter. The sun fucked a mare, and the god of wind a she-monkey. And thus she went through the sleazy garland of divine loves, always adding that, in each case, wisdom and virtue eventually triumphed. No dirt can last in a purified heart," she said, "and in a soul faithful to her dharma, purity will be achieved. That's why I say that the artha and the kama are not worth 1/100th of the dharma." Quite warmed up by this speech, the hermit exclaimed, You're right indeed. A strong dharma can't fail when confronted to the pleasure of the senses." "It can even be strengthened," said Kamamanjari. "To give up something one does not know is stupid," said the hermit. "I have to know the artha and the kama. Please describe them for me." And so the courtesan started to describe the things of the world. For that, she made use of words she knew from poetry. She talked about wealth, how to acquire it, and how to maintain it. She talked about physical desire and love. She said what's going on in men's blood when held by desire. She said that making love was a pleasure without the equivalent, impossible to describe, a supreme intoxication, a summit of beauty and elegance, a pure rapture. She said that love, if well done, and she insisted on that point, if well done, is sharing a joy without any comparison, a primitive unsettling of the mind, yet sweet in the waning waves of memory. At that moment, the hermit forgot everything. He forgot his vows, he forgot the gods and the forest, he took Kamamanjari in his arms and made love to her. As she was quite experienced in the matter, everything went perfectly well. The day after, without hurrying him, she brought him back to town. Marici was in a state of amazement. He was almost staggering, had a perpetual smile on his lips. His head was lost. On their way, voice roses and exclaimed, "Tomorrow is Love Day! Tomorrow we celebrate love!" There was another night of delight at Kamamanjari's home. There was her mother and all her family. They welcomed Marici cheerfully. In the morning, the hermit had a tepid bath, was given elegant clothes, put a red garland of flowers around his neck. He was perfumed, his ears were cleaned, and he was moaning and complaining each time his beloved was away from him, even for a little while. He was in the hands of love. Kamamanjari took him by the hand and led him to a park where a cheerful crowd was gathering around the king and his court. Kamamanjari bowed in front of the king and introduced Marici. Then a beautiful woman, as beautiful as Kamamanjari herself, stepped forward. She wore magnificent clothing. She was very pale. Everyone looked with expectation. She was a famous courtesan too. She prostrated herself in front of the king and said, "Kamamanjari defeated me. Yes, I acknowledge my defeat. All my possessions are hers. From this day on, and until the last day of my life, I am her slave." There was exclamations of surprise. Everybody understood that there had been a bet between the two courtesans, and that Kamamanjari, introducing Marici to the king on Love Day, just won. The king burst out laughing at the sight of Marici, the poor Marici puzzled with his garland of red flowers. Kamamanjari had let his hand go and was smiling at him. After the king, the court and the crowd all laughed at Marici. Mocked, humiliated, miserable, the hermit set off on his way back to the forest, and nobody never ever heard of him again. Kamamanjari took her new slave to her home. She was now without a rival in the whole kingdom. With her family, she kept living a peaceful and wealthy life. The fame of her adventure attracted the princes of the world. When she was asked what extraordinary means she had made use of to seduce a man like Marici, she just answered, "Oh, I talked to him of things he had interest in, I believe."